But I didn't think it was necessary. We're your ally.
Then remove the weapons.
That would leave the hospital unprotected.
Bajor will guarantee its safety.
I'm afraid that's not acceptable.
More than 3 decades later, the cast of Star Trek Deep Space Nine carries stories far darker, stranger, and more emotional than many fans ever realized. Fame, heartbreak, controversy, and tragic loss changed these actors forever after leaving the station behind. Terry Farrell was born on November 19, 1963, and portrayed Lieutenant Commander Jadzia Dax in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. When the series premiered in 1993, she quickly became one of the most recognizable figures aboard Deep Space Nine, bringing a calm intelligence and wit to the ensemble. Jadzia was written as a highly intellectual and fearless science officer who also carried the memories of multiple previous hosts, giving the character unusual depth for early 1990s science fiction television. This allowed Terry Farrell to balance wisdom, humor, and emotional vulnerability in a way that stood out strongly among ensemble casts of the era. Her chemistry with the cast, especially Michael Dorn's Worf, contributed to one of the franchise's most memorable romantic storylines. Behind the scenes, however, Farrell later expressed fatigue with the demanding schedule and requested a reduced workload to pursue other roles, including comedy, instead of adjusting the character's presence. Producers ultimately chose to write Jadzia out of the series, a decision that shocked fans. After DS9, she continued her career successfully, including a role on Becker alongside Ted Danson, proving her range beyond science fiction. Looking back, she has spoken about that period with mixed feelings, acknowledging both creative frustrations and meaningful experiences today. Major Kira Nerys Eisenberg was born on January 6, 1969, and played Nog in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Though already an adult when the series began, his smaller stature allowed him to convincingly portray a teenage Ferengi growing up aboard the station. At first, Nog served as comic relief, a mischievous troublemaker, often getting into conflict with Jake Sisko in early episodes. But over time, the writers transformed him into one of the most emotionally layered characters in the series' overall arc. His journey from delinquent teenager to the first Ferengi in Starfleet became one of the most powerful long-term story arcs. What made Aron's performance especially meaningful was that many of his personal struggles mirrored the determination audiences saw on screen directly there. He lived with serious kidney disease for most of his life and underwent multiple transplants over the years. Despite constant health challenges, he remained connected to fans and attended conventions where people praised his inspiring presence. He remained deeply connected to fans and attended conventions where people praised his inspiring presence. He passed away in 2019 at age 50. Tributes praised him. Marc Alaimo was born on May 5, 1942, and portrayed Gul Dukat in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Unlike many television villains who appear purely evil from the start, Dukat believed himself to be misunderstood throughout his characterization arc overall. Marc portrayed him with charm, intelligence, and unsettling confidence, making audiences yet intrigued by him throughout many key episodes of DS9. The writers gradually transformed Dukat from a political manipulator into a deeply unstable figure obsessed with power control and validation itself complex. His rivalry with Benjamin Sisko and his complicated relationship with Kira Nerys fueled some of the series' darkest storylines on the station. Marc's performance helped elevate Deep Space Nine into a more psychologically mature entry in the Star Trek franchise than the earlier series itself. Behind the scenes, Marc remained relatively private compared to many of his co-stars, rarely attending conventions, publicly events. He occasionally attended fan conventions and often discussed how much he appreciated the writers expanding Dukat beyond a simple villain. He occasionally attended fan conventions, discussed how much he appreciated the writers expanding Dukat beyond a simple villain. But his arrival later changed everything. Nicole de Boer was born on December 20, 1970, and played Ezri Dax during the final season of Deep Space Nine. Joining an already established cast under those circumstances would have been difficult for almost anyone. Replacing a fan-favorite character made it even harder. Instead of trying to imitate Jadzia, Nicole approached Ezri as someone overwhelmed by suddenly inheriting multiple lifetimes of memories without proper preparation. That vulnerability gave the character a completely different energy from her predecessor. Some viewers appreciated the fresh direction, while others struggled to move past Jadzia's death. Nicole later admitted she felt enormous pressure stepping into such a controversial role so late in the series. Fortunately, several cast members reportedly helped support her during filming, understanding how difficult the situation had become publicly among fans. After DS9 ended, Nicole continued working steadily in television and film. especially in Canadian productions closer to home. Unlike some actors who aggressively chased Hollywood fame afterward, she seemed more interested in balancing career and personal life. Over time, many fans softened toward Ezri and began appreciating how Nicole managed to make the character feel emotionally genuine despite having only one season to develop her. Miles O'Brien was portrayed by Colm Meaney, born May 30, 1953, who brought the role of the station's chief engineer to life in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. O'Brien stood out because he was not a commanding officer or a diplomatic hero, but an enlisted man who kept everything functioning under constant pressure. His character represented the working backbone of the station, dealing with broken systems, family struggles, and psychological strain caused by repeated crisis scenarios. Meaney's performance gave the role a grounded realism that contrasted strongly with the more idealized Starfleet officers. After DS9 ended, Colm Meaney built a strong international film career, appearing in numerous European and American productions. He frequently spoke about O'Brien as one of his most meaningful roles, because it reflected ordinary human resilience in extraordinary circumstances. Unlike many sci-fi characters, O'Brien's strength came from endurance rather than heroism, which made him relatable across different audiences. Even today, fans often rank him among the most realistic portrayals in the entire Star Trek franchise. His legacy continues through both DS9 and the Next Generation appearances. Armin Shimerman was born November 5, 1949, and played Quark the Ferengi bartender at the center of station life in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Quark was initially introduced as a comedic, profit-driven character, but quickly evolved into a complex figure representing moral ambiguity. Shimerman gave him depth by balancing greed with unexpected moments of empathy, especially when dealing with his brother Rom and nephew Nog. The character often served as a lens through which the series explored capitalism, ethics, and survival. Beyond DS9, Shimerman continued a steady career in voice acting, television, and teaching. He is also an author and acting instructor, contributing to performance education outside of Hollywood. His portrayal of Quark remains one of the most enduring examples of how a seemingly minor comic role can evolve into a philosophical anchor for a series. Fans continue to quote his lines at conventions, showing how deeply the character remains embedded in Star Trek culture. Alexander Siddig was born on November 21, 1965. Played Dr. Julian Bashir, the station's chief medical officer in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Bashir began as an enthusiastic, somewhat naive young doctor, but gradually transformed into a more complex figure after the revelation of his genetic enhancement. This storyline added moral tension to his identity and relationships, particularly with Miles O'Brien, forming one of the strongest friendships in the series. Siddig's performance balanced intelligence with emotional vulnerability. After DS9, Siddig expanded into international cinema and television, appearing in major productions overseas, including historical dramas, and fantasy series. He has consistently spoken about how his heritage influenced his career opportunities, especially in the post-9/11 entertainment landscape. Despite this, he remained active and respected across both British and American industries. Fans still appreciate Bashir as one of the most human and evolving characters in Star Trek, to be largely due to Siddig's layered performance. Michael Dorn, born December 9, 1952, is best known for playing Worf the Klingon warrior, who became a central figure in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Worf represented the conflict between honor-bound tradition and Starfleet discipline. His arrival in DS9 added a new emotional and political dimension to the series, especially through his relationship with Jadzia Dax. Dorn portrayed Worf across multiple Star Trek series, making him one of the most recognizable characters in the franchise. Outside the series, Dorn remained highly active in film, television, and aviation. He is also a licensed pilot and has expressed interest in returning to Star Trek in leadership-focused projects centered on Worf. His long association with the franchise has made him one of its most enduring ambassadors. Fans continue to associate Worf with strength, loyalty, and internal conflict, all shaped by Dorn's consistent portrayal across decades. Avery Brooks, born October 2, 1948, portrayed Captain Benjamin Sisko in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. When the series premiered in 1993, Brooks brought a commanding and grounded presence that immediately set Sisko apart from previous Starfleet captains. Unlike the more optimistic and exploratory leadership styles seen in earlier Star Trek series, Sisko was written as a man shaped by grief, responsibility, and moral complexity, especially following the loss of his wife at the Battle of Wolf 359. Brooks infused the character with emotional intensity, intellectual weight, and a rare spiritual dimension that deepened the role beyond typical science fiction leadership. As commander of Deep Space Nine, Sisko became central to the political tension between Bajor the Federation and later the Dominion War, often facing decisions with no clear ethical outcome. His unique connection to the Bajoran prophets further elevated his narrative importance. After the series, Brooks continued working in theater directing and education. His portrayal of Sisko remains one of the most powerful and distinctive performances in the entire franchise. Andrew Robinson, born February 14, 1942, played Elim Garak, the mysterious tailor and former Cardassian operative in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Garak is widely regarded as one of the most enigmatic characters in Star Trek history. His conversations are layered with deception-coded meanings and psychological tension, especially in his interactions with Dr. Bashir. Robinson's performance gave the character a unique blend of charm and danger. After DS9, Robinson continued acting and also expanded into writing. His novel exploring Garak's background became highly valued among fans. He also worked extensively in theater and education, mentoring younger actors. Garak's enduring popularity comes from his unpredictability and moral ambiguity, making him a fan favorite long after the series ended. Robinson's portrayal remains one of the most studied character performances in science fiction television. Cirroc Lofton was born on August 7, 1978, and played Jake Sisko, the son of Benjamin Sisko in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Jake's story was not about battles or command decisions, but about growing up in the shadow of war while trying to define his own identity. His friendship with Nog became one of the most meaningful emotional bridges in the series, showing how connection can exist even between very different cultures. Lofton's performance matured naturally as the series progressed, making Jake's transition from teenager to writer feel believable and grounded. After the show ended, Cirroc faced the difficult reality of moving beyond a role he had played through most of his youth. While he did not reach major mainstream stardom, he stayed connected to entertainment through smaller roles and podcast-style media work. Within the Star Trek community, however, he remains deeply respected. Many fans still see Jake Sisko as the emotional heart of DS9, representing innocence and humanity amid political and military chaos. René Auberjonois, born June 1, 1940, portrayed Odo in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the station's chief of security, and one of the most complex, non-human characters in the series. Odo is introduced as a shape-shifting constable with a strict sense of justice, discipline, and order, often placing law above emotion. Auberjonois gave the character a restrained yet deeply expressive performance, using subtle voice modulation, and physical precision to convey Odo's internal conflict. As the series progressed, Odo's identity as a changeling became central to his arc, forcing him to confront questions of belonging, loyalty, and cultural origin. His moral struggle between the Dominion and the Federation created some of the series' most emotionally layered storylines. Particularly significant was his relationship with Kira Nerys, which humanized him beyond his rigid exterior. Now, after Deep Space Nine, Auberjonois continued a prolific acting career across television, film, and voice work. His portrayal of Odo remains one of the most nuanced and emotionally restrained performances in Star Trek, defined by dignity, isolation, and evolving self-awareness. Nana Visitor was born on July 26, 1957, and played Kira Nerys, a former resistance fighter turned political leader in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Kira was introduced as a hardened survivor of occupation shaped by trauma and unwavering political conviction. Over time, her character evolved into a more balanced leader who learned cooperation while maintaining her identity. Visitor's performance brought intensity and emotional realism to every stage of Kira's development. Her real-life relationship with co-star Alexander Siddig added unexpected depth to her storyline, as elements of pregnancy were incorporated into the show's narrative. After DS9 ended, Nana continued working in television, including appearances in science fiction and drama series. She remains active in Star Trek-related projects and conventions. Kira Nerys is widely regarded as one of the strongest female characters in the franchise, largely due to Visitor's ability to portray both vulnerability and strength simultaneously. Jeffrey Combs, born September 9, 1954, portrayed multiple iconic characters in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, most notably Weyoun and Brunt. Unlike many recurring actors, Combs became a defining presence in the series through his ability to embody radically different personalities with precise vocal control and physical distinction. Weyoun, a Vorta diplomat serving the Dominion, is characterized by calm obedience, manipulative politeness, and unwavering loyalty to the Founders, making him both unsettling and strangely charismatic. In contrast, Brunt, a Ferengi liquidator, is aggressive, bitter, and personally motivated, often clashing with Quark in comedic yet tense exchanges. Colm's performances demonstrated exceptional range, allowing him to shift seamlessly between calculated diplomacy and volatile enforcement. His recurring appearances across multiple roles made him one of the most versatile actors in the Star Trek franchise. Beyond DS9, he continued extensive work in genre television and voice acting. His contributions significantly enriched the tonal diversity of the series, with Weyoun in particular standing out as one of the most memorable antagonists in Dominion-era storytelling. More than 3 decades after Deep Space Nine, the cast's legacy is defined not only by iconic performances, but also by the personal journeys that followed. Each actor carried forward the emotional weight of their characters, reflecting themes of loss, resilience, and transformation that the series explored so deeply. From groundbreaking representation to behind-the-scenes struggles, their stories reveal how closely art and life can intertwine. DS9 endures because of this human depth, proving that its impact extends far beyond science fiction. The station may have fallen silent, but its people continue to resonate across generations of viewers around the world.